Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to all our viewers on accidentalmuslims.com. Today with us we have a very dynamic guest. We actually had a small little chat before. Fayruz Mohamed, Chairperson of SANZAF, countrywide. Shukran for joining us today.
Shukran for having me.
And Amir Alika, co-host today. Okay, so we're going to get right into it. Who is Fayruz Mohamed?
Okay, Fayruz Mohamed is basically a mom of 4 kids, aged between 23 and 9. Married to Samad. In terms of my profession, I'm a qualified chartered accountant and certified director. I'm the SANZAF chairperson, national chairperson, so I have my full-time job is taking care of my family and my 4 kids. I take care of another child, which is somebody else's child, which is my husband. And then I have four part-time jobs. So alhamdulillah, I'm kind of very busy, but I like to be busy. I think it keeps me out of mischief. But it's my way in terms of also giving back, because 2 of the part-time positions that I hold is on a voluntary basis. SANZAF is one of it, and 2 is paid. So I am somewhat financially independent as well, trying to manage and balance the 2. So, yeah.
Okay. So, tell us a little bit about your childhood, growing up. You're from Cape Town?
Yeah,
Okay.
I am from Cape Town.
Okay.
In fact, sometimes people generally ask me if I'm from somewhere else. In fact, last week somebody asked me if I was from Lebanon. And I asked her, why would she say that? Because we didn't even speak.
Yes.
And she said, no, because the way my scarf was draped.
Oh.
So I said, okay. She said, no, because somehow South African women don't tend to drape their scarf this way. So I said, okay, but no, I'm not from Lebanon. I'm actually from Cape Town. I was in Pretoria at the time. So I've been born and bred in Cape Town. I'm a middle daughter of my parents named Ridwan and Amina Arnold, still alive, alhamdulillah. I have an older brother, younger sister. So they usually ask me, do I have middle child syndrome, which I have no idea what that is about, because I don't think I've suffered from that. If I did suffer, I wasn't aware of it, thankfully. So it's nothing that I can carry through my life as issues. Yeah, I grew up in Mitchells Plain, went to Mondale. I studied, or at least I skipped a year post-matric, wanted to take the gap year. I worked at an accounting company, and I think at that company I realized that I needed to be the boss. There was no way I could actually do physical and actual work. And then I decided to study. I decided to do the whole SEMA route, so I did cost and management accounting. I got married in my 2nd year though. My husband couldn't wait any longer. But the condition was that I had to finish my diploma. But then I also had plans to actually then also start family. So in my 3rd year, I actually had my daughter, my eldest daughter was born. And I can remember in my finals, because she was just a couple of months old, breastfeeding at 3 o'clock in the morning and sitting with a book because I needed to write my finals. But alhamdulillah, I passed. And then I wanted to do the BTEC, but then she was a little bit clingy, had lots of anxiety, so I decided to deregister the BTEC. And then I decided, oh well, seeing that I'm at home, I might as well just have another child. And then I had my son, but while I was pregnant, I thought there was no way I was going to be a housewife. I don't think I was meant to be just a housewife. And then I decided to study and apply for my degree. And then I decided to do that over 4 years, so doing 4 modules or 4 exams per semester was something I could manage. Raising 2 kids, doing 4 modules in May and October, that's generally the kind of the route that a reasonable person would take while raising a family. And then after the 2nd year, I thought, okay, now this is taking a bit too long. So what I then decided was to do 2 years in one, which literally meant that I had to write 8 exams in May and 8 exams in October. So what happened was I didn't pass the 8 exams in May. I only passed 7, so which meant that I needed to write the exams. I needed to write 9 exams in October. I was also working part-time at the time. I like to do a lot of things at the same time. Yes. And then I remember a partner at Fisher Hoffman, Mr. Ibrahim Ruknuddin, I will never forget that. He then had to write a motivational letter to the head of the department. Because I had to write 9 exams, they obviously clashed. And he motivated for me to write the exam, otherwise I'm going to have to forfeit a year. Or at least waste a year to write one exam. So they allowed me to write 9 exams, papers at least. And alhamdulillah, I could manage to pass 9 papers while raising 2 kids and still taking care of my husband. So that worked out all well, alhamdulillah. And then I just decided, well, if I studied the degree, I might as well then do the honours. So then generally, because you raise a family, you could do the honours over 2 years. And I thought to myself, okay, that's going to take a bit too long. I'll just do the 1-year honours. But that was the toughest year because you have no social life. You basically have to focus. It's classes every Saturday while still taking care of the kids. And then alhamdulillah, I passed that too. So I think the progression in studying to where, in terms of the qualification of a CA, was never initially my idea. It started just from, a housewife wasn't just what I was going to be. But I wanted to raise my own family, my own kids. So I thought I could do both at the same time. And then, so then I needed to do articles, and I thought, okay, well, I might as well go the whole route. And then that's how I ended up becoming a chartered accountant. So that's basically the younger Fayruz to an older Fayruz.
That's amazing.
So
alhamdulillah. At the same time.
It wasn't easy, but I think a lot of things that kind of helped me through it was I was more disciplined and motivated, because motivation is something that kind of staggers. You're not motivated every single day. But I was disciplined every day. I had to have a plan, so I studied between 4 and 6 in the morning, 8 till 10 every night, every day. So my family generally knew what my structure was. So even if whoever, in fact, I only found it perhaps the next day, my dad would call me and say, I was at your house 8:30 last night. So I told him, but I studied between 8 and 10. I'm not going to open the front door. So that's basically how my life was while I was studying. Yeah. So it's a huge sacrifice and obviously a big support from my husband and extended family for me to be able to then focus on my studies and finish it, alhamdulillah.
And then you said something that now stood out for me. You said that you always knew you had to be a boss lady. So you couldn't see, so what was it that made you feel like that?
I always felt that doing the actual work wasn't necessarily adding value for me. I felt that guiding somebody else and making sure, because I multitask quite a bit. I don't think I have ADD. I have never been diagnosed with ADD, but I generally can manage more than one thing at a time. And I found that when you actually do the work, sometimes people tend to hold you back. Mm-hmm. But when you actually in a leadership role, it allows you to grow in terms of your own role, but also allows you to allow other people to grow. Mm-hmm. And I felt that was more of a role that I really wanted to do, and not just be in one particular position where I just physically need to do the work without being able to allow me to grow.
Yes. So what? I mean, you studied, you became a CA. What is it that led you to SANZAF? How did that happen?
Okay, so I was married, I think, just for a year and a bit, and my brother-in-law, Fayruz Mohamed, was actually the treasurer of SANZAF at the time. Okay. So while raising my kids, studying, I also had 2 part-time jobs. So one of it was working for him part-time. So I used to capture, do the processing. And SANZAF was actually, his way of giving back was also doing the books. Mm. So I actually was physically doing the books for him. Mm. I was actually processing, capturing on ACPAC. And then when I decided to stop working for him, I actually continued to support SANZAF. Mm-hmm. And that was about 21 years ago. So Auntie Zakah was the accountant at the time. We then trained her, skilled her up in terms of pastel. She used to contact me to guide her on certain journal entries, and I took that throughout my career. Even people where I used to work at, where I did my articles, they used to know that SANZAF was going to come around for me to sign some authorization letter, and I had to declare it as well, because where I worked was that you needed to clear if you were involved in any non-profit, if you were executive board member, and that's how I initially got involved from a voluntary basis. But then I became a regional executive member around 13, 14 years ago as the regional treasurer. So then my brother-in-law came to me and told me, well, you're qualified now, why don't you come on board and give back of your time as a regional treasurer? So I came on board as a regional treasurer for about 3 years. I stood one term, and then they asked me to come on board as a national treasurer. And then from national treasurer, I actually had that role for 2 terms, so for 6 years.
Okay.
And then from there, I became the first national deputy chairperson. So the role was basically progression into ultimately taking over as national chair, because I was basically groomed for the role. So, and to me, it doesn't matter whether you at the top level. I think as women, we lead from within anyway.
Yeah.
So usually people who tell me, oh, I'm so glad SANZAF now has a female chair leading. So I say, well, I always used to lead. I just led from inside.
Yes.
We don't need to be the face of any organization. And I think as women, we take on those inherent roles that we get the job done. And that's what we do. So
what does, a day in the chairperson of SANZAF? What does it entail?
Okay, so my day doesn't necessarily just goes around SANZAF because of the various roles that I play. But let's say, for example, it is a day that I would be focusing on SANZAF. So it's usually around mornings, because I have to pick up the kids. I Uber as well, so I have to pick up the kids in the afternoon. I generally schedule all my meetings in the morning. So if I have a scheduled meeting, which is generally at this head office, which is in Salt River, I would schedule with many people. So it would be the CEO, it would be marketing, it would be possibly the national coordinator, because she deals with my trustee responsibilities, and it's generally finance as well. So when I do go there, I schedule many meetings with different departments to ensure that my time is obviously very much effective. However, what I do is I set an alarm for when I need to leave, because what happens is that when I do get there, it's like, as I'm about to leave, oh, I just need you to sign a document, or I just need 10 minutes of your time. So they know that as soon as I walk in, if there's anybody that would need my time while I'm there, they've got to tell me before the time, because I need to leave at a certain time to then obviously mom kicks in, so I need to fetch the kids. But yeah, so my responsibilities goes around ensuring that the CEO, who has oversight of the country, adheres to the national business plan, and that our strategies are put in place, and just the monitoring of that. So,
and you touched on it earlier, but what is it like being a female leader in this kind of environment?
Okay, in an organization like SANZAF.
Yes.
Okay, that's a very common question that I get, but I think that the fact that I'm female is by default, because like I told you, the progression of my role in the organization was just the fact that I just happened to be female. But maybe to give you an idea as to what it is like to be a female within the organization, I must say, alhamdulillah, the stalwarts of the organization, the trustees, they've somewhat almost all of my mentors, because they've always been supportive of myself since I got involved, or even since I've been a trustee for over 11 years. So they got to know me in terms of as a person, in terms of professionally, how I do things, how I work. So their supportive role in me being currently the leader, or at least the face of the organization, has been nothing but supportive. In fact, today I had a call from one of the trustees about a particular issue. So they just didn't raise the issue, they mentor me at the same time. And that is what I love about the organization, in that we have certain ulama within the organization as well. And with all of them I have an extremely good relationship. Because we've worked together for so long, I suppose they know what I'm capable of, and they trust, and alhamdulillah, they've given me the honor to lead the organization currently. But as a female, I think it's my responsibility to ensure that the women within the organization get fair opportunities, so that they can excel within the organization as well. And I think I'd be failing in my duty as a female not to do that.
Yeah, so from my understanding, as a chairman, your duty is basically to chairperson. So
That's okay.
just to basically keep the CEO and the paid sort of individuals honest. Yeah?
Sorry, in terms of honest?
Yeah, you keep them honest, yeah?
Okay, yeah, so...
aligned to the organizational
strategy
principles and values, yeah?
Yeah.
So what is the biggest challenges that you faced or face?
Within the organization, or in terms of the leadership?
Or both, for that matter.
Okay, I think currently maybe within the organization I would say that we we lack certain skill set within the organization, and I think we're getting to a point where we're trying to match certain skill set with certain roles to ensure that they're obviously the most effective in what they do. But I think generally that ensuring that we follow a certain set of, we are guided by Quran and Sunnah. I mean, that's what SANZAF basically does in terms of guidance. And our objective is to change lives of those less fortunate. And I think those principles is basically what guides our leadership, whether it's leadership from the top, whether it's regional managers as well as staff. And while I did a roadshow in October, and culture was actually a topic that we addressed, and ensuring that at the end of the day, it's how you do something as opposed to not just what you do, and ensuring that first of all that you need to have that ultimate respect, whether it is respect for a recipient, whether it is respect for a fellow colleague, employee, whether it is respect for anybody. That as a leader, respect is earned, and generally through that you gain respect with other people through in terms of from other people. But yeah, I think our guidance is Quran and Sunnah, and we stick to those values and ensuring that those policies and practices is in line with that kind of value system as well.
Anytime being with SANZAF, what did you consider being your greatest success?
I think I can't generally say in terms of my greatest success, but the fact that I've been privileged to be able to be a part of the organization, I think to me is a success. The fact that I have a purpose in life, that I can give back to the community, and it's almost as if where Allah uses you, and I pray and I make dua that Allah continue to use me. It doesn't matter in terms of which role, because our roles change. I may be a SANZAF chair now, I may be just a volunteer at a soup kitchen, and I think we need to take cognizance of the fact that it doesn't matter which level you volunteer. Serving humanity, I think, is the best way of leading a successful life, because we are here to serve. And sometimes when we get too focused on this life in terms of material stuff and dunya, we tend to forget that we need to give back. And we're actually having a campaign very soon around where we want professionals to give back by giving back of their time, or at least give hope to those less fortunate by giving back of their time. And the most difficult part of yourself to give is of your time. It's easy to give money, especially when you have it, but it's more difficult to give of your time, because we are so busy with our families and our work and life that we always tend to say, okay, I would love to do what you do, alhamdulillah, mashallah, but I want you to actually take action and start to give back, even if it is an hour a week or an hour a month. You don't know what it does to your life until you actually just start giving back. And alhamdulillah, I think that has been my success, in that I could be consistent in that. And all those who volunteer for the organization, we are extremely grateful to the fact that they actually do give back of their time, because they are a significant stakeholder to the organization. So may Allah reward them and their families and spouses, because they too play a role in, for example, us being able to give out of our time. My husband has to babysit and take care of the kids. So alhamdulillah.
Can you tell us a little bit about the campaign?
Okay, so it's about professionals. For now, it's about accounting professionals. So it's anybody in the accounting field or financial management field, where we find that we had an ITP, which is Imam Ta'awun program workshop on last Saturday. And a lot of the challenges that the masjid, or at least the Masajid committee members raised, was the fact that they needed accountants to help them either write up their books or support them to implement governance processes. So we're actually going to do a campaign around Adopt a Masjid, whether it's in your community or whether it's been where you previously lived, but where professionals need to give back of their time by supporting and a masjid.
Can students also be a part of it?
They could, but it would then be guided by somebody that is a professional, that would then say, okay, we have some students, these are the tasks and responsibilities I'd like to then filter through to them, but they would be guided by the professional.
There's actually, now that you're speaking about, there's so many aspects of masjid that we don't really think about. Do you want to tell us a little bit about ITP?
Okay, so ITP came about around, for example, initially around where you have imams and the salary they earn is not sufficient to sustain their family. So initially it started in terms of where we subsidize the actual part of the salary. But with part of the salary is the development of that imam as well. So we upskill them in terms of certain, whether it would be report writing skills, whether it be presentation skills, because there are a lot of imams actually, they shout and then people tend to eventually kind of, back off because of the way they present themselves. So those are the skills that we developed the imams. That was the one leg. The other leg was then we found that the masjid committees also needed to be upskilled in that there were a lot of challenges around masjid committees. And we even had a radio program around it, and everybody was taken in that this was something that we definitely needed to workshop. We needed to take it beyond just a program that we do on radio and actually do a complete workshop. So we did a whole year of this workshop every quarter for this year was actually the first. So we did various skills around business plans, governance, financial management, HR, ensuring that the imam has a contract, his roles and responsibilities, the masjid committee roles and responsibilities, how they take minutes. We give them templates. So that was what the whole workshops was basically about. But then what happened was that a lot of them felt, well, they're learning these skills, but who's going to monitor them? They want to be monitored to ensure that are they on the right track? And we find that a lot of them actually struggled with the financial aspect of running the masjid. They needed somebody to help them write up the books and guide them. And because of that, we doing the campaign around Adopt a Masjid, where people can then give back, at least accountants and financial management professionals can give back of their time by taking part in this campaign.
Okay, just before we continue, just Instagram Live and Facebook. If anyone has any questions, please do send them through and we will ask. And Zaid is doing some stuff behind the camera. I'm not quite sure. Click like, share, and all of that. Okay. So besides the accountants and that, how else can people get involved?
Well, there are definitely various projects that people get involved in, and it's usually around what resonates with them. Mm-hmm. And I find with professionals, what resonates with them is usually our bursary program, where they become mentors to our bursary students. And I find, especially when it relates to their own particular field. So, for example, you'll have like an accountant. I'm speaking from the financial industry because that's where I'm from. You'll have an accountant maybe adopting 2 or 3 students through the bursary program, guiding them through the year, mentoring them, especially if they have any issues. They wouldn't necessarily be tutoring them because there would be other means of support. But the mentorship is basically guiding and supporting that student, whether they may just have an issue, and also whether the student is coping, how's it at home, because you don't understand as an individual what other needs they may have or what other circumstances they are in. Maybe they have never eaten for the day, maybe they need a bus fare, maybe they need a textbook. So just mentoring those students who'd give them some sort of bouncing board as to these are the issues. They could help, they may not help, but when they do need that financial assistance, we then have through our welfare department where we can also support that student, ensuring that we support them holistically and not just through tuition. But then there are other programs. A lot of people generally get involved either through winter warmth or our other programs that we have throughout the year. Mm-hmm. But what they need to do is they obviously just need to either contact our offices or maybe on our website and see how they can give back of their time.
And then just link to that for the students watching who are in financial need. How do they apply?
Okay, so our bursary program runs differently throughout the country. So for Western Cape, our bursary program for 2020 actually closed, I think, end of October. However, for Gauteng, I think it's only opening mid-December, up until, I think, mid or end of Jan. I'm not sure in KZN how it works, but they've got to look on our website. They'll be able to see for which regions the bursary program's closed, because it'll be different for all the regions.
Cool. Do you have any mentors?
I have many. My mom has been my consistent mentor, I think, throughout my life. I think her life experiences has allowed her to kind of add, I wouldn't say add value, but guide me to ensure that I kind of don't make the same mistakes. And there are a few things that I kind of follow, and one of them is that always to give people the benefit of the doubt. And I think that's made me a happy individual, in that when you see somebody, for example, in a mall, you get this often where you greet somebody and they literally look right past you. And as women, we're emotional beings, and we'll think, okay, now why didn't that person greet me? What did I do? Or what's up with her? But my mom has kind of taught me to always give the person the benefit of the doubt, that they didn't perhaps see you because they're probably so deep in thought. Maybe something happened, or something is really going on in their life that you perhaps, that just took their focus away from where they're currently at that moment. So because of that, it's allowed me to kind of not take things personally. And whenever somebody kind of says something, I always take it back in the sense that, shame, they must have issues. Because if they're not being nice to me currently, they must be going through a lot of issues, because it doesn't take a lot to be kind. But not always everybody is kind. And that's okay, as long as it doesn't affect you in a way that it affects your day. So you kind of brush it off and you just leave it at that. And those are kind of things that my mom always told me how to kind of live. But then I also have various mentors. Spiritually, I have what you'd normally have, well, my one friend Molina would say Molina in his pocket. Well, I have Molina in my phone. In fact, 3 speed dials. So generally what I do is, if I need some guidance, I generally ask 2 first. One is extremely strict, one is a little bit more lenient. If there's ikhtilaf between the 2, I know I'm safe, although I'll still ask the 3rd one to say, they have 2 different issues, or at least they're giving me different advice, opinions. What is your opinion? And that would sometimes be the middle ground. And then I'd say, okay, fine, shukran. But sometimes it asks the most oddest of questions. So generally my friends would normally come to me first and say, I have an issue. I'm sure you must have addressed this before. What is the solution, or can you guide me? But that's only because, alhamdulillah, I have access to these individuals, and not everybody always do. And then I have mentors within SANZAF that I can call upon to guide me with any issues that I may have within the organization. And alhamdulillah, the fact that I have the ability to be able to have access to these people means a lot to me, that they're willing to give of their time and guide me in various aspects of my life. And then I also have one which I forgot to mention, is a dear friend of mine who always put things into perspective. So no matter what I'm going through, she'll always come with a completely different perspective, and I say, I didn't think of that. I always used to think I'm somebody that has no patience. And she'll say, how long have you been married? And I'll say, about what, 24 and a half years? She says, well, then you have lots of patience. I said, oh, okay, thank you. I never actually thought that I actually had patience, but she always put things into perspective for me, and I'm blessed to have her too, alhamdulillah.
Do you have a favorite Quranic verse or surah?
I do, and it is Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. فَبِأَيِّ آلَاءِ رَبِّكُمَا تُكَذِّبَانِ. So which of the favors of your Lord will you deny? And as I mentioned before, I think it's at the end of the day, everything happens for a reason. And even if it happens that you're in difficulty, there's always something positive to look within that difficulty. And alhamdulillah, I've been told that I'm an extremely positive person. No matter what I'm going through, you will never know, because I will still have the same smile. I don't have moods. I will be exactly the same every day. So I do get irritated sometimes when I find men have moods, because we are the ones with the hormones, so why are they moody? And because I'm not moody, I find that deal with that at home as men, and then,
Yes.
then come to work. With women, I'm a little bit more tolerant and accepting because of the fact that we are very hormonal. So I don't know if men go through that too, but yeah.
They shouldn't.
Yeah, something I need to work through. So yeah, that's one of my weaknesses, that I am not as tolerant to everybody like I should be. But inshallah, we all have our challenges and weaknesses.
How do you? So you are mom of 4 children.
Four yeah.
Children. Your wife. I think you said 4 jobs, if I'm not mistaken.
4 part-time.
Still 4 jobs. How do you strike a balance?
Okay, I think with me is that there are certain tips that I kind of follow, and one of them is that I generally plan everything. My phone and my iPad and my laptop is, I wouldn't say basically my life, but everything is on here. And the fact that they're all kind of synced helps a lot. So if I do forget my phone, I can access my desktop on my laptop. All my calendar reminders are on this device as well as the other devices. And I make sure that people, if they plan a meeting with me, they've got to put it in my calendar. I'm at an age where I tend to be a little bit forgetful. So I have people reminding me to take medication. I have people reminding me, don't forget about the meeting, besides my own technology. But I tend to plan a lot of things as much as I can. Whether I plan, I travel a bit. So when I do travel, I plan meals before the time. I even plan my outfits before the time. I plan everything as far as I can, so that my day is as efficient as possible and productive as possible. And with that, I think, besides managing my time, I try and focus my time and at least give the energy to whatever I'm doing at the time its rightful due. Because no matter if you manage your time, if you don't have the energy and the focus around it as well, you'll just be putting things in your calendar, and that would be it at the end of the day. And I think if you need help, what works for me is that when you need help, ask. Like today, I had a very busy day. I had a meeting in Durbanville between 2 and 4. And what I generally do is, as a mom, I support other moms to help lift or play dates. So when I do ask other moms for a play date or a lift, they're very happy to help me, because I generally do it for most other moms as well. So when I do need the help, I ask. Because my older 2, who are my permanent babysitters and Ubers, are currently not in town. So for the first time, I had to kind of ask other people for support, and so that I can at least not rush and stress coming from a meeting in Durbanville to ensure that I'm on time to fetch them from school. So when you need help, whether it's from your mom or your sister, ask, so that just to make things a bit easier on yourself. And yeah, I think generally I try and plan things ahead of time to ensure that I have somewhat of a balance between work and home.
Okay.
With regards to SANZAF, how are you guys funded?
By South Africans, by individuals.
Okay.
So 100% of our funding is through individuals who need to pay Zakah. So we administer and collect Zakah and Sadaqat. But basically the purpose of SANZAF, what people mostly know SANZAF for, I mean, it's been a household name for around 45 years, alhamdulillah, is we collect and distribute Zakah. What we do now, we find, is that one of a very few, if not the only organization that actually does education around Zakah. So we do a complete, especially in the month of Ramadan or just before, because we find that a lot of people are very much more spiritual during the month of Ramadan, and they're very giving, or more giving in the month of Ramadan. So we have, in fact, I'm one of the presenters that we do a radio Zakah Q&A on both radio stations. We do various workshops in the month of Ramadan. I went to Pretoria as well. We do an all-ladies Zakah workshop. So we do a lot of education around Zakah to just to conscientize people on the fact that Zakah is a pillar of Islam, so it's something that they basically have to do. But also it's something more for themselves than something that is mandatory. because Zakah giving is more for yourself. It cleanses your spiritual part as well as obviously your physical wealth. That there are more benefits to it than just handing over money. But we also find that people are not always educated around Zakah, around the basics of Zakah. And that's what we do to ensure that the calculation of it is correct.
Yeah.
Because that is one thing you want to make sure that you don't owe Allah anything. That you calculate your zakah correctly and properly. And we also have consultants around the country where people can actually go to offices and have a one-on-one on someone with someone to calculate the zakah. Where I, for example, would be sitting at the airport and offering a zakah quick workshop with someone, maybe because our flight is delayed, and that's what we do. So no matter where we're at, because people generally see me as either the SANZAF lady or Mrs. SANZAF, that, you know, Zakah is what I live for. And alhamdulillah, it is. And I'm willing to meet with any female who wants to do the calculation, because it's just what we do. It's in our blood to be able to...
SANZAF is actually... it's also one of the websites that has the calculator.
Yes, so we have a Zakah app.
Yeah.
That another means of where people can. So it prompts you for certain assets. So if, for example, you didn't even think that stock needed to be part of your assets that you needed to calculate Zakah on, it prompts you for a list of assets that you possibly could have, as well as from a personal perspective as well as business, and it then has the nisab. The values, it has everything in there already for you to calculate. All you need to do is put in your values and it does the calculation for you, the 2.5%, and it will just tell you how you can pay. So it is what you need to pay. So alhamdulillah, we try and make it as easy as possible for the zakah payer.
And do you guys have any fundraisers?
We do, because our the administration of Zakah in terms of the operations needs to be funded mostly from a non-Zakah perspective. We have various fundraising. In fact, on Saturday within the Western Cape, we're having a Braai Day. So this is the one time you can actually support the organization is by, if you can't give up your time, is then support the fundraising events, not just SANZAF, but any non-profit in your community, because they need your support. They need to be able to collect funds, to be able to run and administer the organizations. So go to the offices. They're having a Braai Day, inshallah, where you can buy food. So you benefit at the same time. You're not just giving money, you're also buying something in terms of food.
Okay, did the lightning round?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So we have something called the lightning round.
Okay.
It just sounds
Lightning.
scary. It sounds scarier than what it is. So basically it's just a list of questions and you just complete the sentence as quickly as you can.
Okay.
Okay, do you want to go for it?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Do you have it there?
I do have it. Okay, so first up, Allah is,
Most merciful,
love is,
unconditional,
the world needs,
more kind people,
happiness is,
being able to be me,
success is,
living with a purpose,
being a Muslim to you means,
being able to live a balanced life,
leadership is.
continuous learning.
On your pizza, do you take pineapple?
I can.
But do you like
But you're not against it, right?
No, I'm not against it.
But do you like it?
The Hawaiian pizza is an
quite
option.
nice. It's
Yeah.
quite nice, yeah.
I love sourness. I can eat a lemon. So pineapple is an add-on.
Okay. Can we close? Any other questions?
I have one. I don't know if you've asked it already, but did you always envision this for yourself?
Being the national chair of SANZAF?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Although when I was young, I must say, I think maybe serving may have been somewhere, because I initially wanted to become a teacher, and then I wanted to become a policewoman. But then somehow when I reached high school and I did accounting, I then realized it was definitely going to have to be in the numbers game, because I enjoy numbers. It takes a special person to become an auditor. So I tried that, and as soon as I could get out, I got out. But then the numbers is still something that I enjoy. So reviewing a set of financials is actually something that I love to do. It's not something that going to work and I have to dread a couple of hours of doing number crunching. It's actually something that I thoroughly enjoy. And I must say, fortunately for me, I can look at a number, I have the eye to say this number doesn't look exactly the same like the number on page 50. So I have very much attention to detail, and I'm a very stickler for any marketing material going out without numbers being approved by the Treasury, or even sometimes by myself. Because I have an eye to kind of pick up small detail that sometimes I need to kind of step back and say that it is a bit operational, but that's one way that I feel I can give back in from that point of view, is that I have attention to detail and I can easily pick up something that doesn't look right. So from a numbers point of view. So I didn't envision being the national chair of the organization, but maybe volunteering in a finance department or giving back is something that I could have possibly do for the rest of my life. I still have, even though I'm the national chair, I still have a very close eye on the numbers, where I can still, even to the Treasury, say this number doesn't look right. Please just go and check and re-look whether this number has been casted properly or is correct. But alhamdulillah, as a national chair, we're not kind of boxed in roles, because I can be the national chair, which may lead and strategize and have those kind of responsibilities. But if I need to step in and support the national treasurer because he may be out of town or he's busy, then I'm happy to do that, because that's what we do. We work irrespective of titles, because the work needs to get done. So we add value in all aspects and support each other from a trustee point of view.
I know a lot of my friends who studied accounting. Their main reason for becoming an accountant is purely
Financial.
to
I must say, alhamdulillah, as a chartered accountant, you get paid a reasonable, good salary. And I think, but I generally see the accounting profession, well, there are two professions as a female, I think, is very good to go in. And the first one is in the accounting profession, and the other one is medicine. Because as a female, it allows you to have that balanced life, because you can work from home and you can work a reduced day. So as a doctor, you can locum, and you can work your own hours. As an accountant, you can own your own practice because you can work from home. A lot of friends of mine eventually started their own businesses, although a lot of them asked me when I resigned from my employment about 10 years ago, because going up in the corporate ladder was somewhat inevitable, because you were a black female CA, so that progression was in line as well. But that didn't really excite me, maybe because I didn't really need the money at the time. So I needed some fulfillment, and climbing up the corporate ladder and seeing myself as a director of a company wasn't something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. So when I left my full-time employment, which wasn't really full-time because it was a reduced day anyway, SANZAF then found the opportunity to say, well, why don't you come on board as a national treasurer? Although I was part-time, I basically worked for them full-time. But I didn't mind, because I had the time on my hands, and I had another 2 kids post that. So alhamdulillah, the career, I think, from an accounting point of view, is lucrative in the sense that it is a financial the opportunities, and it's very diverse. The career for a CA is diverse in various spheres, industries. But I think that when you get that kind of rizq, it's somewhat compulsory for you to give back, or give back in where you can lift somebody else up to be able to then have a career and opportunity as well. So yes, maybe you should speak to some of your friends that are accountants and say them to sign up on our campaign.
Yeah.
So they need to give back as well.
And then just again, with regards to, well, it doesn't have to be particularly SANZAF, but it was an encouragement for people to actually get involved. I think especially with the youth.
I think with the youth is that for them to be able to add any value to this world. If you look at the way technology is, if you look at social media, there's different ways they can give back. And I always say give back in an industry or in a field that you're passionate about. So if you're a youth, or you are of somebody that loves technology, or you're in HR or marketing, give back of your time both ways, where you can learn from the organization as well as then give back in terms of whether it's through internship, because we have that too. We have a few internship programs where individuals actually come on board and give back of their time. They obviously get a stipend from the organization, but it's their way of also giving back through these internships. But for most of the other programs, the youth need to get involved from. We always need volunteers, whether it is on our Children's Day, where we need them to come on board. So they need to please also sign up on our volunteer program, because they may need to go through some training, but it helps them to put it on their CV. Because many times, if you look at institutions or companies, they want to know, besides your academic career, what have you given back in terms of the community? Yeah. Are you somebody that gives back in terms of supporting a program, whether it is at school, whether it is within your community? Because they want to have a well-balanced individual. And sometimes, in fact, a lot of them actually look at those things besides just an academic path. Yeah. So, inshallah, yeah.
Thanks. Any questions, Saeed? No? Okay. Then I think we will close. Any final words for everyone watching? Or as we usually ask it, if these were your final words ever, what would it be?
Okay.
No pressure.
No pressure. Well, yeah. Okay. If this was my final few words, I would say, not necessarily in terms of encouragement to just others, but if you have parents alive, do good to them, because doing good to your parents makes you a happy individual. Because when parents are contented with their children, their du'as are mustajab. So they will make the best of du'as for you. And as a parent, I continuously obviously make du'a for my kids as well, so that they can be the coolness of our eyes. So my words then to everybody else that do have parents out there is never make them cry, because I think that is a huge, if I can say, not just disappointment, but you are losing out big time. So do good to your parents, take care of them, make them happy, and inshallah you will be happy too.
Shukran so much for your time.
Have fun.
And all the best for all the future endeavours and for everything you do, inshallah.
Ameen. Jazakallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum wa rahmatullah.